You call because something went wrong, not a catastrophe, just normal American life. A charge you don't recognize on a statement, a subscription you can't find a way out of, a package marked delivered that never arrived, an account locked for security reasons, with a message that says to call customer support to unlock it, which is how you ended up on hold, listening to music that wasn't designed to calm you. It was designed to keep you from hanging up. Eventually, a human being arrives. They sound warm. They ask for your name, your account number, the last 4 digits of something. You explain the problem. They say they completely understand your frustration. Then, in the ways that matter, nothing changes. You explain it again, you get transferred, you verify yourself again. After 40 minutes, you either give up or you happen to reach someone who can actually do something, and you're not sure why that person had the authority the others didn't. You hang up. You feel like you lost a negotiation you didn't know you were in. The strangest part isn't the time, it's the texture. Every dead end felt pre-placed. Every apology felt like it came off a shelf. Every loop felt calibrated, because a lot of it was. We call this bad service. That framing is too charitable. The reason customer support feels the way it feels is not that companies lost the ability to help, it's that helping you in a narrow but significant set of circumstances stopped being the objective. I'm Marcus Chen. This is Built This Way. You've lived through this exact loop. You just assumed it was dysfunction. It's not dysfunction, it's a workflow. The modern support ritual has a choreography so consistent across companies, industries, and decades that it can't be the result of individual failure. Verify, explain, wait, escalate, restart. It holds its shape because the infrastructure beneath it was built to hold its shape, not around your time, but around measurable throughput. The system was designed to move volume. What happens to the individual inside that volume was always a secondary consideration, and the precision of the friction has increased quietly over time. More data, better analytics, clearer visibility into exactly which moments cause customers to abandon a dispute, a cancellation, a refund request. The frustration didn't get louder, it got more targeted. If you've watched what I've done on airports or on how American parking lots actually work, you already know the underlying shape here. Environments that present themselves as built around your needs, running on an architecture of incentives that has very little to do with your needs. Customer support fits that same pattern. Different industry, identical logic. That's where it stops being a complaint and becomes an engineering question. To understand how it got here, you have to understand what it was built as. In 1961, AT&T launched WATS, Wide Area Telephone Service. It was a flat-fee, long-distance offering aimed at businesses. A few years later, WATS introduced inbound toll-free calling. By 1973, that inbound system alone was already a more than $750 million business for the Bell system. Businesses could now receive calls at scale from anywhere at a fixed cost. That's not a service philosophy, that's a distribution network. Around the same time, early automatic call distribution systems were enabling something that had not existed before, the industrial handling of telephone contact. You could route thousands of calls. You could track how long each one took. You could measure how many agents you needed to handle a given volume at a given hour. The Rockwell Galaxy system, released in 1973, is a landmark in call center history, specifically because it showed what large-scale routing could look like. What it made possible was not deeper relationships with customers, it was throughput. That word matters, because once something becomes infrastructure for throughput, it gets measured like a factory, and once you measure it like a factory, factory logic follows. Through the 1990s, the logic extended globally. The information technology revolution made offshoring of service work practical, with call centers and business process operations moving toward lower-cost labor markets, the same general trend that had already reshaped manufacturing. The voice on the phone moved, the volume stayed, and the work itself was quietly compressed. By 2024, the Bureau of Labor Statistics counted approximately 2.8 million customer service representative jobs in the United States. That number is projected to fall by 5% over the following decade. The reasons the Bureau gives are self-service systems, mobile apps, and automation handling more of the routine work. Million. The phrase they use is simple tasks. Here is what makes that phrase worth examining. The Bureau's official occupational description for a customer service representative includes, as part of the job's core function, the provision of basic or scripted information. Bureau. So the evolution of the role, as the Bureau frames it, is that automation handles the simple tasks, and humans handle the complex ones using scripted information. That sentence does not quite fit together, and the gap between those two things is where most of the friction you have experienced actually lives. I want to walk you through what the documents actually say. The Federal Trade Commission in 2023 took action against Amazon over how Prime subscriptions were enrolled and canceled. The FTC said Amazon knowingly designed the cancellation process to obstruct. In its filing, the FTC concluded that the primary purpose of the cancellation flow was not to enable subscribers to cancel, but to stop them. Not to enable, to stop them. That is not a critic's interpretation of Amazon's design. That is what the FTC alleged the internal design logic was, on the record. And Amazon is not an outlier. It is one of the largest subscription operations in the world, and its cancellation design became, in the FTC's framing, a case study in what the industry had been moving toward. The same year, the FTC returned nearly $99.4 million to 389,000 people after action against Vonage. The allegation was that enrollment was easy, intentionally, and that cancellation required multiple contacts, multiple agents, and multiple rounds of retention pitches just to exit. Nearly $100 million to nearly 400,000 people for being made to work for the door. The FTC receives tens of thousands of complaints about these structures every year. Its negative option rulemaking, the regulatory process that produced the click-to-cancel rule, received more than 16,000 public comments. The record for that rulemaking cited survey data showing that 42% of consumers are still paying for at least one subscription they no longer use. 42%, because they forgot or could not locate the exit or tried and gave up. And then I was going through the full rulemaking document, not the press release, the actual regulatory text, and there was a line in there that took me a moment to process. The FTC's own rulemaking record acknowledges an emerging industry. Those are the words used, an emerging industry. Built specifically around helping consumers cancel subscriptions they are unable to cancel themselves. There is now a business category whose entire purpose is canceling things on your behalf. The support experience did not fail to prevent this. The support experience is what created the market for it. The dead ends were not oversights, they were deliverables. There is a second person in this story who rarely gets named, the representative you spoke to, the one who verified your identity, heard your problem, expressed genuine empathy, and then could not do what you needed. That person did not design the system they were sitting inside. They are managed by it with a precision that is worth understanding. Average handle time is a foundational metric in call center operations. It measures how long a contact takes, start to finish. It is tracked at the individual agent level. It appears on dashboards. Lower is treated as more efficient. Industry platforms that sell this software acknowledge in their own documentation that pushing handle time down aggressively can harm the customer experience. It pressures agents to rush. The system has this documented, and it was built this way anyway. Alongside handle time are deflection rate, containment rate, and automation rate. These are measurements of how often customer contacts are resolved before they reach a human being. Inside operations and software companies that run these systems, the internal framing is that deflection is good. Not because your problem is solved. Deflection does not measure resolution. It measures whether you stop trying. Research on contact center employment published in peer-reviewed literature consistently connects this work to low autonomy, high emotional demand, and what researchers call emotional dissonance, the gap between what workers feel and what they are scripted to express. Scripts, the literature notes, enable a high level of organizational control. That's the clinical description. What it means in practice is that the representative often knows the answer you need, has no authority to provide it, and has been trained on exactly how to sound while telling you they can't. They can apologize. The script gave them that. The script did not give them an override. The representative is not the failure point in a broken system. The representative is the human surface of a system that is, in a specific and important sense, working. Which brings you to the question that almost nobody asks out loud. If this is this bad, why doesn't the market fix it? The American Customer Satisfaction Index has been tracking this for decades. The national score as of the most recent data is 76.9. That number has not meaningfully moved since 2017. The index's current analysis names switching costs, seller pricing power, and market concentration as part of the reason. They use a phrase that is remarkably direct for an index: pent-up customer defection. It describes a condition where dissatisfaction has accumulated but not translated into exit, because exit is too expensive. People are unhappy and stuck. In sectors where your data is embedded in a platform, where your payment method is on file, where your history and your preferences are woven into one system and moving them is costly. Frustration can accumulate without immediately becoming a business problem. The resentment is real, it just does not go anywhere useful. And that distinction between resentment that is real and resentment that costs the company something is the gap that makes the whole system sustainable. The click-to-cancel rule, which the Federal Trade Commission finalized in 2024 after that large public record, was vacated by the Eighth Circuit in July of 2025 on procedural grounds. Set aside the legal mechanics for a moment. What that sequence tells you is that subscription cancellation friction became significant enough to trigger major federal rulemaking, a public comment process with more than 16,000 responses, a finalized rule, and then major industry litigation to undo it. That is not a feature in a software product someone forgot to update. That is a commercial interest worth defending. The exhaustion you walked away from that call with, you were reading something real. What you were reading is a system that spent decades learning with increasing precision that friction in specific places is not a cost, it is revenue protection. That empathy can be scripted at scale without being resourced with authority. That most people will absorb a bad experience rather than pay the full cost of leaving. That if you make the exit hard enough, a meaningful percentage of customers will decide that giving up is cheaper than continuing. And that the number of people who give up can be predicted, modeled, and optimized. This is the same underlying logic I have covered when looking at parking lots and airports, environments that present themselves as functional and neutral while running on a hidden architecture of commercial pressure. The parking lot is not organized around parking, the airport is not designed around transit, and a lot of customer support is not built around support. That's the whole engine right there. Once you see it, the texture of those calls will read differently. The warmth that does not translate into action, the transfer that resets your progress, the chatbot that resolves everything except the thing you called about, the cancellation flow that requires one more step and then one more. None of that is indifference. It is calibration. You are now going to notice it in places you have not noticed it before. Not because it was not there, it was always there, but because you now know what it is measuring. If this video clarified something for you, subscribe so you catch what is coming next. There is more of this kind of system to unpack, and the patterns keep turning up in places you would not expect. I want to know, what is the most precisely engineered dead end a support system has ever put you through? The one that felt too smooth to be an accident? Leave it in the comments. I read them, and the best ones change what I research next.